Hi guys, hope wherever you are and whatever you've been doing, you've had a sensational day. Tonight we are sharing 3 top tips on how you can sneak in lots of energy for your child with our special guest, Sarah Smith, dietitian from Bayside Dietetics. You know, through a child's life, their nutritional requirements will alter and change to suit their rates of growth and development. So as their little bodies are changing, so too will their energy and nutrient levels at different stages and age groups. So as a parent, carer and grandparent, it's important for us to take into account the extra demands on their little bodies. So the question is, how can we sort of get more energy into our children without feeling like we have to resort to similar types of food every day? Well, Sarah's here tonight to tell us how. Now, as an introduction, Sarah is a founder from Bayside Dietetics, and Sarah works in a private practice in Bayside, Melbourne, after working for an extensive period at the Monash Children's Hospital. And Sarah thrives on helping children and their families work towards freedom from the limits of food concerns, reactions, and difficulties. How are you doing, Sarah?
Well, thanks, Rachel. Thanks for having me.
Always excited to chat with you. Now, now we've got our 3 key questions that we're going to go into, but I've taken note that in your article you mentioned a couple key points, and I just wanted to touch base on those just quickly. And you mentioned children who need more energy are typically participating in high-level sport, needing to catch up on some form of growth, or going through some form of illness. So I just wanted to clarify with our chat tonight, because I'm guessing a lot of parents are going to be thinking, my kid's got enough energy, I don't want them to have any more.
Yes, that's a very good point.
Are we speaking about for this particular article and this topic tonight? Could you just elaborate a little bit for us?
Yeah, perfect question, Rach. This article is really targeted for kids that are having some sort of appetite suppression, shall we say. So they might be, we know that exercise and sport can suppress your appetite a little bit. So a kid that's doing a lot of it might have a bit of trouble feeling hungry enough between training sessions. It might be for kids on a medication that suppresses appetite. A lot of the ADHD medications,
right,
or another sort of treatment, they can have the effect of doing that. And there are some children who have had some sort of illness or event when they were younger, and their job is to now do a little bit of catching up of their growth, but their natural appetite won't necessarily lead that, so they need a high energy diet as well. So I suppose it's a really specialised, or I suppose a really niche group of children who need just to be pushed a little bit higher in energy intake to do a job that their appetite's not allowing them to do.
Yeah. So as a general question, so I guess all children are going through some form of growth. So this is, I guess, the nutritional requirements for those particular children and going through those particular stages of growth. Would that be right?
Well, a healthy child will naturally eat enough for an extra growth. So a lot of, a conversation with a mum or a dad might go along the lines of, gosh, little Harriet eats everything one day and the next day she won't eat a thing. And that is quite reflective of a normal child's growth pattern and a really healthy engagement with their appetite. So they know at certain times they need to eat a lot, and sometimes they don't need to eat much at all. Now, this group of children, though, who would need a high energy diet would be a group of children who aren't able to do that quite so well. So a group of children, who's on a medication, who their body might need more energy on one particular, or for a few weeks because they're having a growth spurt, but the medication doesn't let them feel that. So they miss that extra, what their body should have told them to eat a bit more. They're missing that key, and their weight suffers. Or, as I mentioned, with the sporty group, kids that are just so active with sports, and this is really for really intense older kids, when you sort of don't get enough recovery time after the training session to feel hungry enough before you then going back to school or having a next training session. So a group of kids, I suppose, who, so the healthy children will be able to do it for themselves. This is a group of kids who need something extra.
All right, cool. Well, now we published your article, How to Sneak Lots of Energy for Your Child. For someone who hasn't read the article yet, could you give us a quick snapshot on what it's about and just a little bit of what inspired you to write it, and then we'll get stuck into the 3 key questions.
Yeah, sure. So I suppose there's a big group of kids that I see that will come in with these concerns. So writing an article often always inspires them and gives them some new food ideas. So that's where it came from. And the article basically goes through some food ideas, specific food ideas, as well as a couple of principles behind it as to how to get a bit more energy into your child if a child is not naturally eating more and you're having to do the job yourself.
All right, cool. Well, let's get stuck into the 3 questions. So question number 1, what are the ways in which I can achieve a high diet for my child? Please tell us.
So I will always, no matter what area I'm talking about, will always have an underlying principle of saying the parent is in charge of what the food is to be provided, and the child always maintains the job of how much. So in this situation, the parent is providing some higher energy food choices and allowing their child to still do the job of choosing how much of that they want to have to eat.
Right.
So the article's divided up into 2 main ways of getting the extra food. One is from choosing some foods that have got just naturally high energy in them. So some, a couple of choices I've put in there are things like nuts and dairy foods, because they just naturally have a really dense source of nutrition, which is really, really helpful.
Yep.
And the alternative way is to take a food that is not quite so dense and adding something to it to give some extra energy to it. And often the ideas that I've used, and often you'll see out there, ideas that are based on adding fat to food. And the reason for that is that fat has got twice as much energy in it per gram than the other types of food. So you're really getting a really good bang for your buck when you add more fat to the diet. So for a child that doesn't have much to eat, it's a really great way to get in some extra energy for them.
Cool. Well, so because the first paragraph, or the first sort of chunk that you're just talking about, talks about nuts, full cream dairy foods. You said are an excellent snack idea. And then lots of eggs and baked beans on toast. You mentioned smoothies can be a great boost, which is great, and you can pop lots of different things, like you say in there, peanut butter for children that don't have any allergies, LSA powder. Lots of other bits and pieces that you mentioned in the article. So smoothies are a great way. And you say porridge and soups, which is a great idea. And then you also say chicken thighs as well, which is, so they're more dense than chicken breast. Is that right?
Yeah, basically any tissue which stores more fat than others in different compositions will have a bit more energy in it. So the other example I've used is the deep sea fish. So they, to keep themselves warm, they also need more fat stores in there, and it's just more energy dense than the white fish or the chicken breast. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's my
but it makes an easy choice, because when you go to the you decide you're going to have fish for dinner. If you've got a child with a high energy need, you choose the salmon. Or if you go to the butcher, you ask for chicken thighs rather than chicken breasts. So it's trying to give some really just easy stuff that just parents can just pick up and run with.
Yeah, and then the second part of the article, you mentioned the things that you can add to the meals, being the salad vegetables like avocado, tzatziki, and hummus that you can add into with your vegetables and your salads, and there's some cheese as well, which is always great. And olive oil you mentioned as well in with pasta, rice, and noodles, and then also different nuts, obviously for children that don't have allergies, peanut butters, and a whole heap of other bits and pieces. So I mean, all the information's in the article, everyone that's watching, but there's some really, really great ideas there. So I mean, the question is this really better than just more processed and junk food, obviously, like to be able to increase the amount of fats? Because I think when we're talking about fats, because there's going to be fats in processed and junk food, but there's a different sort of fats. Is that right?
Yeah, you're spot on, Rachel. It certainly is, because when you process fats, they change to be not quite so healthy for the body.
Right.
Plus, there's a lot of, to make the food really tasty, there's a lot of sugar and salt and things that go into it. Now, exactly what that means, to be honest, no one actually knows yet. There's not really any good studies and information on kids that have a high processed diet to get the extra energy and the outcomes later in adulthood. But I would be recommending the safer approach, which is saying get some extra fat by all means, but get it from those lovely unprocessed sources like your oils, your hummus, your avocado, the stuff you just went through. and doing it that way. And you also then get the nutrients that come with it. So you'll get, so for example, you choose the cheese, you've got calcium and some protein that's going to come with it. You
Yeah.
choose, you know, a lot of the oils get some nice, some really healthy fatty acids that come with it. So some, you certainly are going to be, I think, better off to go through those sort of the ideas we've got in the article as opposed to the processed diet, which is fine on occasion, but I wouldn't be relying on that to get the extra energy for your child. That would be the point.
Yeah, so very, very like a big difference, obviously, with the different types of fats, good fats and bad fats.
Yeah.
I've got lots of bad fats around my tummy as well. It's one of those things. All right, anyway, question number 2. What's the key to keeping a high energy diet for my child? So what's the key?
I would say consistency. One word, easy answer, it's consistency, because you want the child's body to be trusting that that extra energy is coming along every day, and so it can do the catch-up growth it needs to do. High energy sometimes, but not other times. The body gets quite confused and doesn't respond quite so well. So just making decisions about what are the ideas you can actually do, and then sticking to those with consistency. That would be the key. And I would say, in my experience, to make that happen, it's making that decision well in advance. Because if you wanted to cook with, let's go with the chicken thighs, you have to have made the decision before you went to the butcher to decide there. So it's kind of, it's early planning and knowing what to have in the cupboard and the fridge and what to buy in the supermarket. So then when you come to dinner and you want to make it high energy, you've got the oil sitting there, you've got the chicken thighs to cook with, you've got the peanut butter that you're going to mix through, you've got all of that ready to go, and it makes it easy.
You know, I call me crazy if you like, but I love to cook and I love to plan ahead. And always on a Friday, I will be planning my meals for the next day. So when I get up on a Saturday morning, I can go to the butcher, I can go to the fruit shop, and it just allows the time to be able to not have to be running back and forwards to shops and that sort of stuff. But it's on the fridge, and Monday to Friday, it's pretty much we know what we're having for lunch and for dinner for every meal.
That's amazing.
Yeah, well, that's the thing when everyone's busy, and that's just the you know, and ensuring that you get some versatility, and that you've always got what you want to eat, but you've got it in the cupboard in the fridge and that sort of stuff as well. So I get
that sounds lovely.
On a Saturday morning, the meals are planned for the next week, and the shopping list is already done. So it's a matter of just going and buying it. But it's exactly what you said, I guess, is just planning ahead and knowing. So you've already got that, and having that intention.
Exactly, yeah, and probably for you, committing Saturday mornings to going to do that shopping, it makes it happen. So you've got this routine that I'm sure facilitates you making great choices with food.
Yeah, and so it just helps, just I guess for consistency, like you said. Yeah. Well, let's get stuck into question number 3. Now, is there anything that can go wrong if I push my child to eat more?
Yeah, so I've sort of taken the other angle here with this question. So tonight I've been talking about the role as a parent being to change the food choice and give high energy food choices and let your child work out how much to eat. Parent instinct though, and this comes from a really caring place, if you're really worried about your child eating, it's quite instinctual, I think, to try and push them to eat more. So this question is really to address that instinct. And unfortunately, what we know about trying to push your child to eat more, like physically trying to spoon feed them or prompting them and saying, come on, just finish your plate, just do this, is that child will probably eat more at that particular meal, but will not eat more over a whole 24-hour period.
Right.
So you are essentially, overall the big picture, doing more harm than good. So funnily enough, if you can try and keep a more neutral approach where you are just offering the food choices, and they're high energy food choices if you need to, and then allowing your child to still choose how much to have, that's a really that's the best way to actually get your child to eat more overall. Go figure. And we do know too that pushing a child sometimes can lead to a child turning food into a chore. So they start to go, gosh, the meal times where I have to sit ages in my chair while I'm pushed to eat, and I'm doing this job that I really don't want to do. And then all of a sudden you've got a child that wants to be avoiding the dinner table, and it becomes more of a chore. And it can even extend to a bit of oral aversion. So a child that really just does not want to be having food by any means. and you know, you sort of get into a whole world of difficulties there. So that really neutral approach of feeling like you're doing something as a parent, but make that job to be buying the food, making the high energy choices, cooking their high energy choices, and just allow your child to choose how much to eat based on their appetite in the moment.
And talking about choices, I'd love to know your opinion on this, but, you know, food advertising has an increased effect among children. In particular, you know, online and television advertising has got a really strong influence on children's food consumption, with regards to, I guess, children eating what they want to eat as opposed to what parents want them to eat. I mean, what's your opinion on that? And I know we mentioned earlier on about sort of bad fats and that sort of stuff through junk food, but do you have any tips for families and parents with regards to how they can help control the opinion of what their children want to eat through their exposure to online advertising and actually giving them all the good stuff that you were just mentioning before?
Yeah, it's so relevant, hey, Rachel, the promotions that come from companies, because they do so much work into working out what's going to make a child say to their parent, can I have this for dinner? So it's a really hard battle as a parent to be trying to come up against that. But of course, a child is going to be doing it because it looks really good, because it comes with a gimmick, or it tastes really good. And that's okay some of the time, but if they're the only reason that food choices are made, you're going to run into trouble with the diet not being particularly healthy. So parents, in my experience, know a whole lot more about food and nutrition than kids do, and a much better place to be the ones to be able to make the food choices. So I always bring it back to that really, shall we say, it sounds quite simple, but it's really hard to do. The concept that if it's a decision around what the food choice is, that decision actually lies with the parent. So no matter what advertising is done, how much Johnny asks for it, the decision about what to eat lies with the parents. But of course, as we talked about today, the decision with how much to eat lies with the child.
Yeah.
And so if you were, as a parent, not sure about whether or not to go with something, ask yourself the question, is this the decision about a food choice or about the quantity of it? And then just using that to guide you in the way forward. I do make it sound kind of easy, and I do appreciate that the advertising it's really hard, really hard for parents, because there's so much money spent on that exact thing, getting kids to direct the food choice. But I would, for parents, be quite wary of that, because the way that food tastes good is through all this different stuff that's done with food that loses a lot of nutrition. So if you really want to be giving your child a really nutritious foods, then taking responsibility back would be the key.
Yeah. Well, you've given us some awesome tips tonight and lots of food for thought. Sorry about the pun, but if parents have got any other questions for you, and whereabouts can they find you, and what's the best way, through social, through your website? Tell us.
Yeah, good question. Probably Facebook and website are my two most active ones, even though I always endeavour to be better at the others. So www.baysidedietetics.com.au, and it's all got all my contact details in there too.
All right, awesome. Thanks so much for the chat tonight. I've actually learned quite a lot myself, which has been awesome, and I'm going to take some of these tips, and I'm hoping everyone that's watching is going to do exactly the same. So thanks so much for your time, Sarah, and I can't wait to catch up again soon. Take care, my love.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Rachel. Bye.
Bye.